Dane Palarino, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Excited to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Dane, you've got an incredible story of success and what success really means in a deep level. I'm excited to explore that with you today. But before we dive into what that is and means, I'd love to hear, just help us introduce yourself by telling us who you are, how you're showing up in the world today, and who you're serving with that.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Thank you. Always kind of a difficult, quite easy question, but a difficult question to answer, right? So my name's
Yeah.
Dane. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm originally from Connecticut, and right now I'm a father. I'm a husband. I've got two boys, 8 and 5 years old, and I've been an entrepreneur the last 14, going on 15 years. I started my career off as an entrepreneur running recruiting headhunting agencies, and I did that. I still do that actively, but primarily over the last 12 months, my passion and purpose has been serving men over the age of 35, dial in their health and nutrition by changing their habits and their mindset around how they need to be treating themselves first before they can serve the world. So that is coming from my own experience of scaling businesses and prioritizing money and success and providing for my family over myself. And in due time, that ended up having lots of consequences, not only for me and my health, but also for my wife and for my children and for my employees and for my clients. And so about 3.5 years ago, I went on this journey to make Dane more successful. And that started with prioritizing my health. And I used fitness as a tool to do that, as well as nutrition. And so now I lead a company called Dad Bod Sculptors, which helps men over 35 really prioritize their fitness and their nutrition so that they can take care of themselves, so that they can serve the people they love and the people they provide for in a better way, and showing as their best version, as opposed to kind of leaving that lower on the totem pole and prioritizing their work. So what I've done is been able to implement systems in my own life that allowed me to kind of maintain this busy schedule, but also not have this or that, but this and that. And that was kind of being the best body that I've wanted to be in, and also kind of be the best provider that I needed to be. And so that's what I've been up to the last 13 months.
There's so many beautiful things in here. And the thing that I want to point out first, as a theme that I've been seeing in some of my conversations on and off the podcast, is if you don't have your health, it's difficult to be effective anywhere else. If you can have all of the money in the world, but if you're trading on your own health away, then it doesn't really matter. You can have an amazing family, but without your health, you can't really provide for them or create that space that you want for them, and sometimes you even endanger them by disregarding your own health.
Yeah, that's the
And
truth.
yeah, but we don't often see it that way, and a lot of times there's this illusion that we have, especially I have this too, of overvaluing my work or making work the only priority in my life and thinking that it has to take all of the space. And I think a lot of people have experienced this before. And the idea, I'd love to start here with this, of can I go to the gym and be as ripped as Dane is right now and have a family and kids and achieve in my business? And like how can all of these things possibly fit together? I think that would be one of the biggest questions that these high performers have to ask, right?
Yeah, it is a really good question, because like as you know, in your 20s, you have a lot of energy and you don't necessarily have the money, right? So you're always concerned about chasing the dollar and being successful. And there comes this point in like crossing the chasm where the people that are successful get over the break, and then success kind of consumes them. So then we play a different role, right? We're protecting what we have, we're increasing our lot in life, and then we're taking on responsibilities like, oh, here's a wife, and oh, now here's children, and oh, here's a home, and oh, here's a business, and oh, you need another home, and hey, you got some vacations, and hey, now you need to provide, extra things to the family and keep up with the Joneses, and nobody kind of gives you a playbook. And so as you go through these things, everything's kind of thrown at you, and you're just kind of playing the game as it gets thrown at you, and health slowly starts to fall lower and lower on the totem pole. So I always tell guys, like, it's not your fault. There isn't a playbook for like how to prioritize that. And when you look at the key responsibilities, like, it seems almost selfish to be like, no, I need to put myself first. It's like, well, you got a family, you got a home, you got a mortgage, you got children. How do you have time to, be training like this? But if you play that long enough, most of the people end up in below average bodies. They end up around 35% body fat. That starts to accumulate a lot of insecurities. You start not feeling good in your own skin. How that shows up in the world is you're cranky, you're angry, you're aggravated, you're agitated, you're short with people, right? And a lot of that comes from you not feeling good about yourself. And that's regardless of how much money is in the bank, right? Because that only goes so far. So there comes a place where you have to say, okay, how did I scale my businesses or my business? I had a system, right? And it was important to me. So it was important to figure out, how do I find and build a system that is sustainable to help me grow this business? Well, that becomes a question that a lot of people over 35, 40, 45 start to then have to internalize and say, well, if I did it here and I was a disciplined man to scale this business and scale this family and scale my net worth, then I've got to be able to now also get the playbook and apply that towards my health and fitness. Because if I don't, there are consequences. Not only am I not showing up and giving my family and my loved one the best version of myself, but I'm also now taking on health risks. And I'm also now being selfish. Like, I have guys that are wearing CPAPs, like Darth Vader when they sleep at 45 years old. Like, it's like, dude, you got another 30, 35 years in that body, bro. Like, you sure you want to continue on this route and prioritize your work over things? So really, it just comes down to saying, this is important to me and I've got to find a way. And I notice when people make that switch, the time always shows up, because one of the biggest excuses is, I don't have the time, right? And then the second one is, I now, with the little bit of time that I do have, I don't know what to do. So then there's so much information. So you get decision fatigue, and you don't really necessarily believe in the decisions you're making, because you don't know if that time is going to produce the fruit that you need. So a lot of guys, we end up having these start and stops with these cookie cutter programs. So for me, that was the problem that I was solving for, Kyle. It was like, I only have a little bit amount of time. And if I'm going to do this now, because I've always been training and been around health and fitness and been health conscious, but slowly but surely my metabolism changed, my schedule got busier, and my standards dropped. And when that happened, I all of a sudden went in a transformation contest where I was forced to take my shirt off and take a picture. And it was like cognitive dissonance. It was like, whoa, do I really look like that? Like, why didn't anybody tell me this? My wife didn't hint at this. And then it made me realize, like, wow, this is why I have not been happy. This is why, even though I've waited 14 years to build a business like this, I'm not wanting to wake up in the morning. It's because I don't feel good in my own skin. And that's when I realized, like, no amount of money is going to solve that, right? I have to solve that myself. And so the high performers really, if they've built a business, they've learned about the art of self-development. So they start to figure out, okay, I have to develop this area now. I've got to figure out the playbook for this area so that I can scale this. And they always do. The clients that come to us, it's very simple. Once they turn that switch and they make that decision that, okay, I'm going to commit to myself, then we hand them the playbook, because that's kind of the protocol that I went through. And then you watch, within 90 days, they're completely different people. And how I like to say is, we're building version 2.0, or depending on the life you've had, it could be version 4.0. It just depends on your experience. But you want to build back better and build back stronger. And after 35, you can do that. You just need the right tools, and you need the right support system.
Interesting. So there's a big objection here around, I can't do it around 35 or after 35. And it does get harder and reality changes. But one of the things I want to point out that I'm hearing in my own experience, I am 36 right now. I'm right at the brink of that. And I'm in a relatively good position, because when I was 26, I encountered a lot of these things a lot earlier than I was expected. I was never overweight, but I did have an autoimmune thyroid condition and really poor gut health. And because I had poor gut health, my body would produce biological anxiety. My gut would feel anxiety. And never in a decade of experiencing this did I wake up and think, wow, my gut dysbiosis is really making me anxious today. Right? It's funny. It's
Yeah.
funny, but it's true. And
Yeah,
and
it
I
is.
would wake up and think I'm not good enough of an entrepreneur. I'm not working or whatever the case
Right.
may be.
The
We would
doubt.
fill in the gaps of what our biology is. And I have a different condition than what you're pointing out, but somebody with 35% body fat is going to feel this biological anxiety. And this, like, no matter how many Tony Robbins books I read back then, I wasn't able to have the clarity or the creativity to do what was necessary. And I think
Hmm.
this is experienced by the people that you're describing as they hit a plateau in their work where managing their success requires putting out fires all of the time, and they
Yeah.
have no more time to work on themselves or in personally, or even do what made them great in the business, because they're just
That's right.
managing the success that it turns out that they didn't really want, but they thought they wanted or were supposed to have as a result of where they were going. But I
Yeah.
think it's just so insidious how many people, they feel bad and they're wrong about why they feel bad,
That's right.
and how much that's costing people.
Yeah, man. The big thing for me, Kyle, like my turning point was when I saw that picture. Then it was like the tape rewound over the last year or two of my life because I had a 3 year old and I had a son that was probably 6 months old at the time. And I remember I started to recognize I had so much negative self talk, and that impacted so many other areas of my life. I knew how to play the role of showing up and being a headhunter. I had committed my life to that, so I was exceptionally good on it. It was autopilot. It's like riding a bike. I didn't have to think about pedaling and pushing and doing all that. It just kind of came to me. But everything else outside of that, it was like the thoughts started to be so negative, right? The insecurities were coming out everywhere. I didn't look myself in the mirror anymore. I didn't believe my own words. I didn't take selfies with my children. I didn't want to hold my wife's hand in public. And I started to have this impact like, damn, these kids are 3. I don't think I've taken a selfie with them yet. And it was like, they're beautiful kids. I've waited for this family. Why have I not done these things? And it was like, because I don't want to turn the camera around, you know? And then when you realize that the things you feed your gut is direct relation to the thoughts that get fed to your brain, you start to realize like this is all connected, right? Like the inflammation that's happening in my body is happening in my brain. My thoughts are coming from the way that I'm fueling my body, and I'm not fueling my body properly. I'm eating like a gut and I'm drinking beer, I'm having sugar, and all of these things. As I started to go deeper and deeper into research, I realized they impact the way you show up. They impact the way you think. They impact the vibration that you carry. And I was like, damn, like I really got to do a 180 here. Like there's so much I have to change. And so for me, I had only recognized like there was one part of my life when I was getting out of college and I was going to come into the world where I had prioritized nutrition and I had a system for nutrition. And I remember I was super disciplined and I had the most success out of all of my friends coming out into the world, into my career. Like I excelled from 19 to 25. Like I was top class in everything I did. And I had a system. And then from 25 to kind of 35, I slowly lost that system and had a steady state of decline as my business went up. But in my brand of Dane, in my own self image, it had slowly gone down. And then I had recognized like, I got to get back to putting the right things in my body, and it has to be optimal and it has to be sustainable.
Dane, I
And
have
then
a
when I
quick
do that,
question.
I need to make sure that I'm training the body properly so that I'm elevating my own vibration and that I'm ready to receive my family. So these are some of
Yeah.
the thoughts that I started to have. But just like you said, like, yeah, I didn't realize how it was all. It wasn't because I was working out. I was going to Orange Theory fitness class 5 days a week. Like
Hmm.
I was fasting. I had a protocol for eating, which was fasting, 2 meals a day, like most men my age. I was training 1 hour a day, checking the box, doing a group fitness class, which was a high intensity training class. So I was like, I'm doing all the right things that I should be doing, but it wasn't. You would never been able to tell. And then the way that I thought and saw myself, that also started to realize, like, yeah, this system isn't working for me. And so I needed to find a way that a system that did. And so that's where kind of the problem was identified. And then I started, like everything else, I started to identify what's the solution.
Dane, I'm overwhelmed with the need to ask you a question.
Yeah,
Um, was the idea that I'm a really good headhunter, I'm the best headhunter, and you were kicking ass in that, and
yeah,
because of that, these other things were kind of okay for a while.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there was. I'm the best in the world at this. Like I knew that there was nobody better at that craft than me. I had put so many hours into it. I had made so many calls. I had built two businesses in that space. One took me 7 years to build a seven-figure business. The next one took me less than 3 years to build a seven-figure business. But there was a compromise, and that compromise was my clothes were getting bigger, my appetite was getting larger, my insecurity was uh, getting larger, and but I was wearing a mask. You know, when that call came or that Zoom call, and I had to play Dane the Headhunter, I knew that I was the best in class there. So I was able to play that role. And a lot of my clients look like me. They all had puffy faces. They all kind of ate this way. They all kind of drank alcohol. Like we, so it wasn't a standard that when I was around somebody that was fit or healthy to where like they made me want to crawl into my own skin. So, and I think that that's also like a problem in today's society. Like, is the dad bod sexy? Like this phenomenon that went around years ago, and it was like, no, it's not sexy. It's unhealthy. Number one, and anybody that has a dad bod only feels good in it because they're not around another man with standards. You know, if you're in your dad bod and you take your shirt off and you're next to another man who has standards, you're not going to feel very good in your dad bod. That's for sure. And your wife is going to clearly recognize that there's a different a different being standing next to you, and that sexy dad bod is not as sexy as she thought.
And it's so much less about this from what I'm hearing from you. And I think that's one thing in one moment and it is concrete. But this also means the confidence to direct your life the way you want. We're going to buy a new house soon. We're going to do this. We're going to move here. We're going to create this life. If you
Yeah.
don't believe that if you don't feel under control of your own body and your own domain, then you're not able to lead sustainably your family or your business or whatever it is. And this is one of the things that I love about entrepreneurship and high performance is it is a constant mirror to hold up to you and challenge you. It's either the best or the worst therapist.
Yeah.
Um, and
100%.
will bring your skeletons out of your closet. Yeah, and you've got to deal with them or not.
That's so true, man. There was somebody once said it to me a long time ago that owning a business is a journey of self development disguised as a business, because
Yeah,
it'll show you who you are and what you're made of. And when the business becomes successful, and then you look at some of the other areas and you see that you're completely inefficient there, like the husband role, the dad role, like I was like, this just doesn't scale well. Like I'm short with my kids. I'm waking up later than them. I'm indulging at night, and I just wasn't being the leader with standards that I had been earlier in my life. You know, because I had not really been a drinker or involved in drugs or really a pornography guy. Like I was pretty regimented up until 25. And then as I started to have some success and people came into my life like friends and we started partying, I slowly started to have compromises. And okay, well I'll drink on Friday night. And oh, okay, well maybe I'll try one of those. Right. And slowly but surely those compromises just opened up a different world and a different side of me, and then it was tough to wrangle it back in. And I always knew like there's a better version of myself, and it was like I just wanted to get it, and I for years could not figure out like how do I just stop this chaos in my personal life and get back to where Dane is serving Dane, because when Dane is serving Dane, I become the best person for these other people I love, and I knew that I wasn't. And so that was the real trigger for me. It was like, yeah, I'm not desiring my wife the way that she needs to be desired. Which in return, I was seeing that, which was a mirror. I was seeing it as she's not desiring me the way that I need to be desired, but it was because I didn't feel good in my skin, so I wasn't kind of desiring her. Right? I was kind of like being like, well, everything should be given to me, and I'm not. My kids aren't playing with me. It's like, well, because I wasn't going and taking time with my kids to play with them, right? So there was all these things where I had recognized like I'm the common denominator and I'm the problem. And I can't keep saying, well, I'm providing and I'm successful here, so everybody just needs to accept this. I just thought like, let's keep playing the tape. You know, your kids are 3 and 1 now. Now they're 10 and 7. Who are you for them? And I recognized like, okay, this health gets worse, right? And I get crankier and more uncomfortable, and it gets harder to rein in. My wife, every time somebody decent looks in, we're going to be in a room of other good-looking men or younger men, and now all of a sudden, that insecurity is going to blow up every single time. Like it was just like, no, I need to be the person that they need, and I need to create that person. I knew it wasn't going to be overnight, so it was like, how do I start developing systems in my life every day that allowed me to say, hey, you showed up today, and little by little, you're chipping away, and sooner or later, you will have created a better, stronger, bigger version for them. And so, yeah, that was kind of where I started to go. And that's only because, Kyle, like building businesses, I always had the ability to kind of zoom out 30,000 feet and look at a problem. You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
the E-Myth, which where you're wearing lots of hats, and sometimes you're in the business and you're working on the business. And this was a point where I had stepped away, and I was like, I got to step out of Dane and work on Dane and see it through a lens that I had not seen it
Oh, I
from
like that.
before, without
Yeah.
taking in other people's feedback. And so I was just really honest with myself. And I think a lot of men avoid that difficult conversation because it's not an easy one.
I want to hear about the day where the picture was taken.
Yeah.
Where was the event? What was happening before that picture? Tell me about that day.
Yeah. So I had Orange Theory. I'd been going every day after work throughout the week. And I'd been going for like 6 or 7 months. And it's an hour class, and they give you a band, and you track your success in the class, like your heart rate, your calorie burn, your endurance. So I had been progressing in the class. And so then they said that there was going to be a transformation because summer was coming up. And I was like, yeah, I want to be in great shape. And they're like, it's going to be an 8-week transformation contest. So in my head, I'm thinking the data. And again, I wasn't looking at my body and evaluating my body. So I was just using this data and my ability of showing up in the class, checking the box. So they said, we're going to have this thing. So I signed up for it. And then one day after class, they said, hey, contest starts tomorrow. We're going to take the before pictures. Go upstairs and take the before picture. And it was like, I immediately, like, my stomach went into my throat. I was like, you're going to take the before picture? And it was like, I was like, got super uncomfortable, And then I'm looking around thinking like, are any of the girl trainers up there? Like, who's taking this picture? And I got like really nervous when I was like, shit, I'll step out of it. I was like, yeah, you got it. Cool Dane. So I'm like, let's go up there. And it was the two guy trainers, and they were like 23, 24, something like that. I just graduated college. They're super fit, and I was cool with them because I was always in bigger clothes. So I played confident, and I played the confidence for my business success. And so when I had to actually bare my skin and show my chest and take this picture, and they showed it to me, it was like I wanted to stick my head up my ass and run out that door. I was so angry. I was so disgusted with myself. And I thought, like, I look like a pear. Like, this is not attractive. This is not the body I want to be in. This is not a strong man, who's supposed to be a leader of his family. And I just had this aggravation with myself, but also with like the world. I'm like, I'm doing the classes. I'm fasting for 6 hours, 16 hours. I'm building a business. Like, WTF? Like, how does this happen? And I was mad. Why didn't my wife tell me I look like this? And I didn't even want to tell her. I didn't want to show her the picture because I was so embarrassed of it, and I didn't want to show her this insecurity that I had. So I drank harder and I ate more, and I just kind of was like, almost like, F it, like, I'm screw this. And I remember like not going to the class for like a week. I was like, F this class. Like, this is not even working. And that was when the conversation came. It was like, something's wrong with me. I got to check. I got to go to a doctor. I got to get like my blood work done. I got to figure this out. And I started looking for like this other outside reason of what the problem was. And so I spent $1,500 for this world-class doctor to get this big, deep blood panel. It was like, he's going to give me the magic pill. He's going to tell me something's wrong with me because obviously there's something wrong with me. And we ran the blood test, and he came back and he said, man, I'd love to be able to give you bad news here and put you on something, but all your markers are good. You just got to make better life choices. And I thought, well, shit, like now there's nothing he's going to give me that's going to fix this problem, you know? He's like, you have high inflammation, you're having some of the skin irritations because you have an inflammatory response from the way that you're eating. So you got to take out some of these seed oils that you're consuming. And then I realized I was eating Chick-fil-A and I was having a lot of dairy. And I was drinking IPAs, and it was just creating this storm in my immune system that was, no matter how much training I did, my body was not going to lose the weight. So that led me down the path of like, all right, I can't get mad at my wife anymore. I can't get mad at my kids. Like, I got to fix this. And so my wife, we had a child who was like, under 6 months old. So my wife still to this day, she puts the kids to bed. She goes up, reads a story to them, puts them to bed. But back then she would be so tired, she would fall asleep a lot of the times and not come out of the room. And I would have to deal with this negative thoughts. And that tape would play. And I remember it became so painful for me, Kyle, that I finally said, I got to find a solution. So I started going on YouTube and I started saying, like, who controls body composition better than anybody in the world? Like, what's the ideal body? And I identified this was the body that I wanted. There was a guy by the name of Steve Cook, who was an influencer, and he had just a great body. He had muscles. They were full. He was sculpted. He was in shape. He looked youthful. He had vitality. I'm like, I want a body like him. So I started watching his YouTube channel. How does he eat? And what's his habits? And what are his routines? And then I realized, like, oh, he lifts weights and he does progressive overload. And he eats macro-based meal plans. And, oh, he gets up early. Oh, shit, he plans his meals. And I just started like, okay, well, I'm going to take some of these habits and start trading out some of my other habits. So that was how the journey like started for me, was like identifying somebody that had what I wanted and figuring out like, well, what are they doing? Because I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to start copying what they're doing. And that slowly set me on this path of like setting a goal and saying like, all right, I'm going to do training and I'm going to change these things. And then COVID hit like a month later, just as I kind of got this plan and the gyms were shut down and I couldn't go to a gym. And I was forced to kind of be in the house again alone with my thoughts. And I only had 25-pound dumbbells. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to figure it out with these dumbbells. And so that's where I ended up. I ended up being kind of forced to be in a place where I didn't have to go to work. And it shut down. So it was like, I looked at it as a blessing. I was like, this is my opportunity. God has taken away this work schedule. And like, I've had all of this build up and this came, and it's unfortunate, but this is your opportunity to start building you now. And so I grabbed those 25-pound dumbbells. I found somebody on Instagram. In 15 minutes a day, this dude was doing this training with dumbbells. And every day I just did one for 15 minutes. And then it went to 30 minutes and then 45 minutes. And then the gyms opened up and I had some level of confidence because I was showing up for myself. And I had lost a little bit of weight to start eating a little bit healthier. And so that was how I kind of got the ball rolling down the hill.
I
Hopefully
love
that
it.
answers your question.
Yeah, great answer. I want to hear the opposite frequency moment now. This was the moment of I can't take it anymore. Was there another time you looked at another picture and saw yourself transformed, or when you saw yourself in the mirror and you were like, I made it, I'm in alignment, I am who I want to be?
Yeah, it was years later. Now, 90 days later, I had been a much more confident person because I showed up for 90 days. I had started this process and I said, there are no days off. I need to get up every day early and I need to prioritize moving my body and showing up for me so that I'm ready to receive my children and my wife. And I know that I've at least shown up for myself. So I did this. And over the course of years, that habit just stayed with me. But I was never a tough critic on myself because I focused more on my 5 daily habits. Like I had recognized I had 5 really bad habits. And so I said, I need to swap them. Like I read the book, The Habit Loop, and I recognized like you can't get rid of habits. You need to replace habits. So I went through this process of replacing habits. And so I incorporated these 5 daily non-negotiables in my life. And I just focused on, I'm not going to focus on the way that I look. I'm not going to focus on the scale because that's going to start the self-talk. I'm just going to focus on winning the day with these habits. And so I did that. And so my body started to change. People started to change. But again, I never allowed it to absorb. I had just, hey, I'm doing this for me. And so one day we went to, in the summer, like a year later, we went to, took the kids to a water park. And it was the end of summer, and I had been on this journey for maybe a year and a half, 2 years now. And I taken my shirt off and I was walking my kids to one of the slides, and there was this group of like teenagers, and they just were like stopping and staring as if they had like seen a supercar, and they were like, "Oh my goodness, like, are you Mr. Olympia?" And Mr. Olympia, if you don't know, the Olympia is like the world's greatest bodybuilders, and that was coming up in the next month. And ironically, I had been watching these guys for forever because I was learning their traits and their habits and how to build muscle. So my son had recognized that name because I had told him, "Daddy wants to be a bodybuilder. He wants to, that's why I eat a certain way. This is why I train a certain way. Like, I'm sculpting my body." And my son just looked at me, my oldest son, and he's like, "He just saw you to Mr. Olympia, And it was like, it hit me this moment. It was like, my goodness, like, I didn't recognize it. I was like, damn, what a compliment. I don't look like a Mr. Olympia, but it was like, I got there. Like, I finally have gotten to a place where now nobody sees the dad bod, because I had always just seen the dad bod and kept pushing and pushing and pushing. So that became this really pivotal moment for me of like, okay, now I'm here. Now I grow from here. I've got a new baseline. I've got a new standard. So that was super powerful for me being the hero for my kid, because he looked at me so differently. It was like he lit up, And I get emotional about it because it was a big moment for me of like, not patting myself on the back with pride. I don't like to say I have pride, but kind of like, all right, man, like, like you kind of did this, and you never really said along the way, like, good job or anybody, I didn't look for any of that. It was like, but I kind of reflected and got really emotional about it. It was like, all right, now we got a new baseline. We grow from
Yeah. You're diminishing it even right now by saying the word kind of.
there. Yeah.
Isn't that funny? But it's
Yeah.
important to notice that, and that's what we're actually fighting against, and that's what we're telling this story, because there are many men and women out there who are incredibly good at what they do, and for many reasons that's an excuse and a crutch to ignore themselves and hide from this greater responsibility. And we need
Yeah.
a story that can confront these people and show them that you understand that deep truth about them in a way doesn't make them feel bad in the same way that you didn't want them to feel bad. And
Yeah,
it's
I
not
agree.
necessarily about what is necessary to get to where you are. And I think you did a great job not explaining like what exactly needed to happen, but more of the process and what you valued within it.
Yeah.
So
And confidence and arrogance, it was like, I wanted to be a confident man, but not an arrogant man.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was this thin line of like, all right, I can wear that now. I can say like, hey, I figured this out. And now I need to just now keep refining it and getting better. Like, I figured out I think in my head, I was like, I knew I had a master plan. So every day my goal was to master the plan.
Are you ready to hear your story?
Yeah.
How do I stop the chaos? This is what I asked myself for the first time seeing myself in a photo and realizing I'm not the person I want to be. Before this moment, I thought I was doing all of the right things. I was one of the best headhunters in the country, amazing at what I do, and I created an incredible level of success for myself and my family. We had money, and I didn't have a lot of time because I was working so hard creating this. But I was doing what I thought were the right things and what everybody else around me was doing. After work, I would go to a high intensity Orange Theory class every week. Maybe sometimes after, have a few drinks with friends or go out and eat out a meal. But this was something that everybody was doing. Nobody was questioning. And I thought because I went to the gym a few times a week, that this was all great. I'd been progressing in the class, burning calories and taking more energy, lifting more weights. I thought I was doing this right, all the right things. And then I can remember after one of the classes, one of these young trainers shouting out, we're going to do a transformation and it's time to get your before pic. And I said, before pic? I hadn't thought about this before, but now all of a sudden, everything inside me wants to run outside of this. This was the thing I had been hiding from. And now it was about to be taken a picture of and captured. All these high intensity things, all of these professional things that I've been doing to make an excuse for not taking care of myself are about to be revealed. My wife's not desiring me, and it's because I'm not desiring her. I'm scared to take my shirt off or even express any kind of desire at all. And for years, I've just been building myself up as this martyr, sacrificing my own self. And one day when I'll get around to these things, when I'm more successful. But the more success I created in my business, the more demands that the success seemed to have on me. And I had less time to take care of myself, less time to be at my family, and even less time to advance this business itself. I was putting out fires. And every day waking up wondering, why am I doing this? Or not really wanting to, but thinking that it's what I do. It's what I'm good at. And now I see myself in this picture. And I see the effects that living this way, putting myself last, has had on my body. I can see it in my business. I'm not as competitive as I used to be. I'm not as good of a leader. And my numbers have plateaued. And I'm certainly not a great father or partner or husband. And it was there staring at that Polaroid that I made a choice. And over the course of a few years and a lot of costly and painful mistakes, I started replacing these old outdated ideas and habits and systems and started building a playbook that would work for me. You know, the fact was I was busy. I had a lot of things going on and a lot of people relying on me. So I didn't need to be flapping around in the gym for 2 hours and not getting any results. I needed simple and easy habits that would happen not just in the gym, but everywhere, that would allow my body to truly become healthier and grow and lose the weight. And I wanted a system that would allow me to create confidence. Not just confidence in seeing myself without a shirt on, but confidence in my ability as a man to direct my life, my team, and lead and be responsible for my family in the way that I wanted. This took a long time. It wasn't easy, but I did start to build that playbook. And it hit me a few years later, after a lot of this work, at a water park with my shirt off, walking with my kids to a water slide, and a group of teenagers stop and stare and look at me. It didn't even occur to me what they saw or what was happening. They asked me, "Are you Mr. Olympia?" And my son looks up at me and he's like, "That's the bodybuilder you've been working with or working after or something." He said, "You look just like him." And it was in that moment, hearing the rushing water and the splashing and the kids screaming, that I realized how far I had come from that one photo. And that I realized how much more important of a journey this was. This wasn't just about a few pounds and a dad bod. This wasn't about some trendy diet. This was about my life and creating a legacy of meaning, being there for my kids, more than just somebody who provides money, but somebody who can provide time, quality, patience, and passion, and to be able to help cultivate a beautiful life outside of the work that I do. And in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to teach you this process to do just that, something along those lines.
That's amazing.
Thank you. This happens about 50% of the time. And I'm honored.
I started getting emotional because it's, yeah. It's really
And
good.
this is one of the the key differences is like when we can tap into these feelings and have this and be understood and stand in both the mixture of pain and experience and share it with purpose. This is what creates the trust. And there are so many men out there suffering and discounting themselves, saying, I'm good at whatever X thing I'm doing to provide for, and are putting off their life. Just before or yesterday, I had a call with a man who lost his wife at a young age to cancer and had two kids and has spent much of his life trying to figure that out and is interviewing people. And I asked him what the purpose of the interviews or his message is. And he told me that nobody cares as much about your health as you will. Nobody's going to fight for it. And nobody has as much control over it as you do. And it's not just about your health. It's about the kids and the impact and the many people that you do impact professionally. And I believe that we need to be at our very best right now and serving people at the very best. And the clear mind and the clear hearts and the clear bodies that you create are an important role in that.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. The work instills the worth, and like you said it perfectly. Like when I was angry at everybody, I had to realize like nobody's gonna fix me. Like nobody's gonna be better or take more of an interest in fixing me than me. So it's really hard to do, and I think a lot of men avoid it because it's so hard. It was a very emotional time for me, and I think now I get on the other side and I always get emotional because I'm grateful that I caught it. I'm grateful that I did the work, uh, versus like, nah, we'll get to it. You know, like it's yeah, it's so important because now like your kids, like people say like legacy. One guy asked me like legacy. It's like legacy to me isn't what you leave in the world; it's what you leave in people. And yeah, just
Beautiful.
being an example of somebody that's has standards, is always trying to beat the person from the day before. That person goes on that journey and it becomes a selfish journey at first because you're prioritizing yourself. But I've impacted way more people in this business than I ever could have imagined. And I realized like this was never about me. I that test was my testament. Like now I'm truly living uh, from a place of passion and purpose. So yeah.
Normally at this point, I would invite you to have any closing thoughts, but I feel that that was the best cherry on top of this episode that anyone could have asked for. So instead, Dane, tell us, where can we go to learn more about you and your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on all the social media, so Instagram, Dad Bod _sculptors. I have a YouTube channel, Dad Bod Sculptors. LinkedIn is a big platform for mine, but honestly, the best place just to get to all those is just dadbodsculptors.com, which is a landing page website. And from there, you can see a lot of my pages and learn and consume a lot of my content, which shares all pieces of my journey, both the problem and the solution.
Beautiful. Dane Palarino, thank you so much for joining us today on the Story Engine podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the experience.